Morning. Can you guys hear me now? Yep. So,
Morning, sir.
morning. Welcome, guys. All right. I must say, I feel good that most of you are present today. Let me see. Who, let me tell you who is present. Hold on a second. Let me bring up this thing. Yeah, I see some people present. I don't see, I don't see Gavin present, and I don't see Kristen present. Tell me why. You here, Kristen?
Hello.
Yeah, man. You're half present. Tell me why.
Because I don't have a picture up.
Ah, yes. Same thing for Samuels and Harrison. Right. All right. Good. That was a good one. So, right. So as I say, guys, the camera isn't mandatory, but the picture, the profile picture is. So whenever you get a chance. All right. All right. Um, so I guess I should start by saying good job for those of you who submitted the work um for checkpoint one, right? We are now moving on to checkpoint two. And by the way, guys, remember if you ever want to check out your grades or anything like that, just head over to the class website. No, not this one. This one. And you just click the check grades section here. And that should carry you to the grades page. And you just scroll right. Right? You just look for your ID number and scroll right. As I said, the criteria are above and the gradings are below and so forth. Yeah. So, good job for those of you that did. I noticed some things though, and I tried to put some notes there for you guys. So for some persons, I can see where your sketch was very like, what's the word? Imaginative. So some of you seem to have some hotel designs, right? Even though we're doing a little cabin. However, when you do the schematic 2D that we did last week, that you have to actually put sizes to things, is when it's supposed to kind of come back down to earth and follow the measurements that are on the brief, right? So just to give you guys a quick recap, right? So when you click on the assignment, right, this is what we're doing here. So when you click on the coursework project, right, remember that we have some criteria here that you need to follow. Here we are, modeling and design criteria. Students are expected to create their own design. Design must be unique, so forth, so forth. Building footprint must be 20 by 20 feet or 6.5 meters by 6.5. I'm pretty sure that you can't fit a hotel in a 20 foot by 20 foot. That's literally the size of a large bedroom, right? Right, Abigail?
Sir.
Right, 20 by 20 is literally the size of a large bedroom, right? So, for those of you that have designs that are bigger than 20 by 20, you will need to reduce them, right? Now, I mean, I didn't so yeah, that's one thing that you guys need to do. I try to highlight. By the way, guys, whenever I mark your thing, there's a section always to the right of all the grading things that tells you that have comments, right? So this is important because sometimes the comments can be like feedback. Sometimes I would give a feedback on for everybody if it's something critical, and sometimes I only give a feedback when, for example, there's an issue with marking your work. Maybe the file is corrupt, or it seems like you submitted the wrong thing, or something wasn't followed. So when you check your grades, always look on the comments, right? And it's based on ID number, so you know. So always check the comments, especially because there might be like an issue with something that you need to correct. So some of you that didn't follow the criteria here, I put it in the comment and say, hey guys, you need to check back the handout to make sure you're following the right sizes. All right, guys. All right. Yeah. I see some of you had fun based on the comments when you submitted the work. That's good. But we are literally about to start the real deal, right? That was kind of just the warm-up. So now we're going to actually start building out your design, right? We're going to start to model it. And we're going to start with the foundation, right? So I'm going to open my file here. Okay, so in my example, I'm using Revit 2024. Doesn't matter which Revit you're really using, you just have to you just know that Revit can only go up, it can't go down. So if there's an issue with your computer and you install an earlier version than what you had before, just know that you won't be able to open that file, right? So with Revit, you can only go up. All right, now what we're going to know is we're going to start from from scratch.
What we're going to do is
we're going to start from scratch. Oh, of course, it has to update. Lord. And we're going to build out the foundation. So we're going to go from the sketch. Now, remember, in my case, I have a different model compared to you. So basically, what we're going to try and do is follow along, and you guys are going to create your own version of your foundation, right? All right. Hold on, I'm waiting for my Revit to open up. There we go. Right. Right, so for me, I'm going to be starting from my sketch that I did. And from my design, I tried to make my design a little complex. I didn't use any curved walls, right? So if you really want to go with the curved walls or slant walls, you might have to get some, you might have to seek some additional guidance from me, right? But I saw some people that had some curved walls and slant walls, and I said, I would consider simplifying the design, because I don't want us to get too hung up on the design in this module, 3D modeling, because it's mainly about modeling, not about design. The more complex the design is, the more effort you have to put out when modeling. And for a lot of you, you're probably learning modeling in Revit, maybe for the first time, or maybe you're just starting out. So I would say to try and simplify your models, right? In case some of you want to modify your models, you can modify it to a certain degree. So for example, if you had like a door that was a certain size, but then when you start to model it, you realize, you know, this door was too big or it wasn't practical, then yes, you can adjust it. If you want to change your entire design, you have to let me know that. All right. All right. So we are now going to go from a 2D sketch to a to start modeling the foundation, right? And our workflow is going to be foundation site. So we're going to get through the foundation today. Next class we're going to get through the site, and then that will mark checkpoint 2, and then comes the big one. The big one is going to be the walls, right? And that is going to be worth the most points. That's where a lot of persons get hung up sometimes. All right. All right. As for activity, class activities, we'll see. We may have a class activity, we may not. As you know, it's going to be kind of random, so we will see. Hold on a minute. Am I sharing? Oh, you guys are seeing my screen, right? No? Oh no. I wasn't sharing. No, I was. Are you guys seeing my screen all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were seeing it before, right? All right. All right. I'm just looking through. Okay, no messages. All right, cool. Let's go.
Start to map out our 3D drawing. And in order to get that done, the first thing we want to consider is to structure our levels, right? Usually when we're starting a 3D model, we want to get organized with our levels or our grids. So levels basically tell us what
There we go.
So for example, with the drawing that we have here, this could be considered our ground level, or at least our, let's just call it lower ground level. But here we have another level, which is kind of like the upper ground level, because this entire area here is pretty much our ground floor. So these are two levels that exist within our ground floor, actually.
Does anybody here have a split level?
I do, sir.
All right, cool. So you would definitely want to follow based on how I'm showing you. All right, I see one other person with a split level. All right, cool.
Really. So here is where we'll have our second floor or our first floor, depending on what region you're from, right? So these are all just different levels. Now we also have a level for the water that's here, and what we can do is try to give them some labels. So I'll put W for water level, and I'm going to call this, let's just call this level 1A and level 1B, and then this now would be level 2. So all of these are different levels, and think of them as reference points, and we're going to set up these levels first before we start to model anything. We're going to start to define what these levels are. Okay, let's go ahead. Okay, now what we're going to do is, in order to determine levels, we need to be in an elevation view. So if we look over here at our project views, we're going to look for elevation, and I'm just going to pick a random elevation. Okay, so this kind of represents our elevation.
Now, depending on the template that you guys use, you should have your elevations in your Revit file already. Is there anybody here that where your elevation is empty? Meaning you don't have any elevations in your under your elevations category? Anybody? Nope. Nope. I'm assuming yes. Everybody have it there? Elandra. You hear Elandra?
Yes, sir.
So you have elevations in your model?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. All right, let's just continue then. So, all right, Elandra, you answer yes for everybody in the class since you're the only person who answers. I can assume everybody have elevations.
And what we're going to do is, we already have two levels starting with level 0 and level 2. Now we want to kind of have the levels as a reference here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our sketch that's here, and I'm going to take a snip that's there, and we're going to put that on our sketchboard. There we go. So we're going to put that here, and we're going to have our drawing here. All right, so that's our drawing here. So we're going to paste that here. All right, so now we can kind of get organized with our levels. So let's go on the east elevation view. And what I'm going to do is make these a little smaller so that we can see more of the drawing here. All right, so remember before we spoke about some different levels. So I'm going to put some reference lines here to determine what levels we're going to use. So we definitely have a level for the water. So let's put this in yellow and let's make it a dash line. There we go. So we're going to have a level here, and I think we'll call this level. Then I think we're going to have a level here, and we're going to say this is the bottom of foundation. Then we are going to have another one here, and we're going to say, we're going to call this level 1 lower, and we're going to have another one here, and that's going to be here, and then we're going to call this level 1 upper. So we'll have lower and we'll have upper here.
Now for you guys, you don't have to lay out you take a screenshot and lay out your drawing like what I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing this to illustrate how levels work. But usually, whenever you're starting any kind of drawing in any BIM program, in this case it's Revit, the first thing you want to do is to plan out your levels and plan out your grid, right? So now we're talking about levels. So what kind of levels do I have in this drawing that is significant? Oh, I have an upper and a lower level. Oh, I need a level for the water. Oh, I need a level for, I don't know, my railing. Like all your significant levels, it doesn't have to necessarily be level in terms of just roof and ground floor. In Revit, you want to put a level for anything that is significant, right? Suppose you have a two double flight of stairs. So you have a stairs that go up to a landing and a stairs that go up again. You know, you can, if you want, you can identify a level at the top of the first landing and then the top of the second landing. So in Revit, think of levels as those reference points, right? So what I'm doing here is that I am planning out the different levels that I have in my drawing, because it's still kind of a sketch here, and it will help me to be organized with how I'm planning to model.
Have another level, maybe about here, and we will call this Intel. So these are pretty much the major levels, reference levels that we'll have. But in all of this, I would say that our main levels that we're going to use will probably be these here. So we're going to put those in red. So level 1 lower and level 2. Level 1 lower, that floor plan will show both levels. That's why I use the level 1 lower. Okay, so let's start creating this. Now, when you go to the elevation view, we're going to notice that there are 2 existing levels. So we are going to use level 1 lower to be level 1 here. So I'm going to call this L1 lower. Then,
so also guys, we should be doing this in the same Revit file that we created the sketch in, right? So this is not you starting a brand new Revit project. All right. We're just continuing from whatever you did the work in and submitted the last time.
the level 2 that's here is going to be for this level here. Now the good thing is that I have this sketch here, so it can help me to give me an idea of how far these heights are. So now remember that these heights may not be exactly accurate, but it's a good start. So for example, this is saying that is 11.5 feet. I could maybe just round that off to 11 feet and then say, when I click on level 2, I can just say let that be 11 feet, right? So that's now 11 feet. Now if I can take a dimension and I can put there, and there we go. So we know that that is 11 feet. Now notice there are some other lines that you see here, right? Remember, this is an elevation view. So firstly, we have this line here that is our scope box. So pretty much all our annotations and everything for the drawing will be in this. Then we have this here, which is going to be our, let's just say, our boundaries. So any line or any model that exists beyond this point, we won't see it. This is just a kind of a reference line that we can use. So we're not going to use this right now, so we're just going to remove that. And actually, if you can see here, this is a section that is here by default, and we're just going to leave that for now. All right, now so far we have created these 2 levels. So this is pretty much the height of one floor that we have here. Let's create some of these other levels that we're going to do now. Now, keep in mind that in order to create a level, we must be on the architecture tab that's here. And we must go, if we head over right on this side under datum, we see where we have levels and grids. So if you remember, I told you earlier that usually the first thing you do when you're setting up a drawing, you're either doing levels and grids, or you're doing at least one of them, because these 2 elements here form the foundation of whatever you are creating.
Right. So in drawing, whenever you see the word datum, I don't know if you've come across that word before, but it, it simply means like a reference point. Like, this is an important point, and you derive every other point based on this point. You know what I mean? So the word datum, that's why you see levels and grid fall under that category, datum. And that is also to highlight that in Revit, if you ever can't locate where you don't remember where a feature or a button is, always remember that each of these categories that you see here, so like this, it's a category, it's a circulation. For this, it has to do with the model. Same thing for datum, It has to do with levels and grid and so forth. So notice that you see these little lines in the background with these little categories here, right? And that is how, you can never know everything of Revit. Sometimes I forget where something is. But if I look at the category, like, if I look at the word circulation, I know, say, okay, I'm probably talking about ramps and stairs or whatever. So if I don't remember where the stairs icon is, I just need to look for the category circulation. So that's another tip for you guys to help navigate Revit, especially those of you that are using Revit for the first.
So let's create a level. So if I click on level here, this is asking me if I want to save the project. So I'm just going to take some time out to say, yes, I want to save. All right. So now notice I'm in an elevation view and I'm creating a level, and you can see where it's asking me to start to draw a level, and a level is a line with 2 points. So for example, I can say start here and end here. Now when I draw this first level, notice a few things. Firstly, there is a new plan called L4, and it is attached to this level that I just drew. Now this level is the same thing like this level here, but notice that it doesn't have this symbol at the end, right? So what we're going to do is, let's see why. So we can, when we finish drawing the level, I'm going to hit escape here, and remember how Revit works. I can click on the level and I can see the properties for that level. So let me make this full screen for now. All right, there we go. Now these are the properties of that level, and I can go to the main properties here, and if I click on this, it will show me that these are some different types, some different family variations for this family that's called a level. So every object in Revit is pretty much a family, and then within that family you can have different variations, right? So this particular level family is one that has no head, so I can change it to one that has a arch 8mm symbol on both ends like that, or I can change it to this one like that has it on one side. So this is the same family type as these other levels here, because you can see they have the head on one side and not the other side. So that is why this looks so different. So here we go. Now this level is called level 4, but let's take a look back on our drawing here, right? We did have a few levels. We have one that's called bottom of foundation. So we are going to look at that one right now, right? So we could turn this level into this one that says bottom of foundation, and this one should be below the lower level, the L1 lower level here. So it should be below this. So we can move that all the way down, and then we're going to call it bottom of foundation. Then it's going to ask me, would I want to rename also the plan view that is associated with that level? And in this case, I'm going to start to wonder, do I really need a plan view that is showing only the bottom of the foundation? So that's going to be an important question. So for this, I'm going to say yes. So it's going to rename this, but also I'm actually going to delete this because I'm going to delete bottom of foundation. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I don't want a plan for this bottom of foundation level. All I want is a plan for my lower ground level and my upper floor plan. So these other levels are just going to be references so that it can help me to model. They're not actually going to be plans. So in order to not get them confused, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to no head, and that will help me to define, okay, so I know these are my main two levels and these are not my other levels here. Though if I do that, I'm also going to lose the label as well. And we can actually customize what these look like, but we'll do that at a later time. For right now, let's create the rest of the foundation. So let's get an idea of, well, we also need a waterline foundation. So I'm going to click, and I'm actually going to copy this. I'm going to go in the ribbon here, and I'm going to go to copy, and I'm going to go to paste. All right. And then we have our waterline. Now I can always refer back to my sketch here to get an idea of just, get a rough idea of how far these are. So for example, I can click on this here and I can go to my dimensions. I can just go up here to my little shortcut menu, and I see that the top of the foundation is about 7 feet. Copy this again. So I'm going to go to copy and paste. All right, so this one is going to be top of foundation. So actually I didn't have a top of foundation. I had a waterline here. Yeah, I don't need a top of foundation, do I? You know what? I'm going to leave it. Maybe I do need one. So top of foundation, bottom of foundation, and the top of the foundation was about 7 feet. Was about 7 feet from the lower part here. So I'm going to actually move this dimension up here and make this 7 feet. And no, I have these two dimensions over each other. What I can do is press tab. I can press tab to switch to another object whenever they're both above each other. And this one was about 8 feet. I mean, not minus 8 feet. All right, now notice that these letterings are kind of big for the scale. So to make it a little bit more manageable, I'm going to go over here to drawing scale, and I'm going to change that to a bigger scale, which would make my text smaller. So maybe 1 in 20. 1 in 25. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so let's make this a little neater. I'm going to actually grab this right at the neck right here, and I'm going to move this so that it's somewhat in alignment. There we go. There we go. All right. So we have our waterline, bottom of foundation, top of foundation, and we have our upper floor. We also need to have our level 1 upper. So I'm going to copy this and paste that, and I'm going to paste it above. Oh, it's actually pasting from here. So I'm going to just paste it there first. Notice that when I paste it, I didn't put in the height for it. And that's because in Revit, the concept is copy it or put it down on the sheet or in a virtual space and then revise it, right? So the rev is revise and the I is it, so revise it. So that's the kind of concept of how you use Revit. You draw it, then you revise it. Just draw it on the sheet. Doesn't matter if it's bigger or smaller, just put it on the sheet and then you revise it. All right, cool. So this one is going to be 1 upper. And this was, if I could measure it here. So you can see how the sketch is becoming very important, because we refer back to the sketch to get an idea of dimensions. Even though in some cases we didn't really draw things to a particular dimension. But the thing is, this is to scale. So whenever we draw something, we know that we can get a measurement from it, which is why we chose to refine the sketch in a drawing environment. So this is about 2 feet, so I'm going to use that 2 feet. All right, this is that upper level. All right, great. So now we have our different levels, right? And notice that these levels, by default, they come aligned with this area right here, right? And if I move this, you will see that some of these are attached to this line. Now this line, as I said before, it's kind of a line where you would put all your dimension, your annotations in or behind. so that your main drawing is here and then all of your like annotations are behind this line, and it makes it just easier to manage. Now you can use it if you want, or it doesn't matter if you don't want to use it. That's fine actually. So in our case, we're just gonna remove it because we don't need to have that line there. There we go. And we are going to, I'm going to go to move at the top, and I'm going to grab this at the neck here, and I'm going to align it with that right there. Yeah, I'm going to keep everything aligned for now. Doesn't really matter, but we just want to be neat. Okay, great. Let's save. Okay, now let's take a look back on our sketch here, and we need to now model these foundations that are here, right? So let's put this back here. Yeah, we can always refer back to our sketch here. So firstly, let's put in these foundations. Let's get the size of our deck. So the size of this deck is the same. That's actually this element right here. And remember, we might actually come up with some adjustments to our drawing as we go along, right? So I'm going to, in this drawing here, I'm going to go to annotate, and I'm going to go to detail line here, and I'm just going to put these reference lines like here and like here. I'm going to select them, right click, and go to, I'm just going to turn them into a hidden line, so it's going to be dashed, and I'm going to override the graphics of these elements, and I'm going to make it red. There we go. So I can use it as a kind of guideline. All right, great. So this element here is going to be this lower deck, and this lower deck has this kind of shape like this. Now the great thing about this is that I can actually just grab, and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to my level 1 lower, right? This is the L1 lower, right? And we can keep track of these levels. Remember, we said we would have a level 1 lower will be our main level that will have our floor plan on, which is going to be here. So at our level 1 lower, that's here, it's this. We don't need this reference line. We can delete it for now. And we're going to go to modify, and then we're going to go to paste, align to selected view. Actually, it's not going to be aligned, but we can just go to paste, right? And when we paste it there, notice that we have our drawing. Now, this is from our schematic sketch now in our floor plan. So we're going to paste it there, and we're going to say okay to finish. And before we go any further, we're just going to select these, and we are going to group them. And we're going to call this sketch. So now it's easier to just like move this around. So pretty much this is going to be our guide for drawing our base, right? So now firstly, our base is a slab, so we need to draw a slab. So we're going to go to architecture, and we're going to go to floor. And once we go to the floor tool, notice that we have some tools here. So we can draw a line, and we can actually start to trace this out, our slab. So I'm going to show you two different ways. So first, this is the first way here. So I'm going to trace out this base. Bam. So this is my lower base there. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to tick yay. I'm done. And it's going to show us a 3D of our base there. Now we can track what we're doing by going to the 3D view. If I head back over here, we will see that we have our 3D views, which is under coordination right here. So we can actually double click that. All right. So now that we've double clicked that, we can see that we have the first part of our deck that's right here.
Sure. You're talking, we're not hearing you here, sir. Brian, we're not hearing you, know. Anybody else hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, so Brian, we're not hearing him.
Mic check. Oh, it seems that my headphone had shut off. Gavin, you were talking? Who else was talking?
I was just asking if it matter what thickness you use.
If it matter what?
What thickness you use for the floor.
No, it's up to you. It's up to you. And what you find out is that while we're doing the modeling, a lot of the, how do you put it now? The architecturally correct way of representing things, we might not spend a lot of time on that because we're going to spend time on that next module, which is BIM. So, for example, how thick thing should be, we will just select a reasonable size based on reasonable construction. We might not dive too deep into the how it's represented in line work, at least not in this module. Because we mainly want to focus on the modeling. All right, so let's proceed.
Before we do that,
Remember, we
click
heard
on this-
nothing what you said before, you know.
All right. What was I saying? I was asking if anybody else had any questions. And right, I was also saying that for some of you, the Revit, if you notice that mine is black, if you're using Revit 2024 under view, under canvas theme, you can change it to black or white. So some of the colors that you see represented for the symbols might be different. And you can go to 3D view by clicking the 3D icon here. I went here and I went to coordination and then 3D views. That is, if it depending on the template you're using. So in this template, it's under coordination. If you chose like the residential template, you will see 3D view directly there. All right. The different templates give you different layouts for your project browser. We're not going to dive down into editing the project browser because that's going to be a bit more advanced thing. But if you want to do that, you can just reach out to me individually. All right, let's proceed.
we see that it is a floor slab, and the family type that it is generic 12 inches thick. If I click on this, you will see some other options here. So for example, you can see 300 millimeter, 150 millimeter. So let's choose 150 millimeter here. So notice that it's now thinner. Also know that this is hosted on the level 1 lower, right? So if we take a look back at our sketch, we'll see that. So the slab is here, and in Revit, the slabs are more.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
I was once told that everything that we do, we should first make a duplicate of it and all of that. So if we put it in a floor, we should first create the duplicate of the floor, and then we use that duplicate to do the drawing.
Okay. I mean,
is that so?
Well, like I would call that a method of how you would choose to draw, right? So it's not a must that you do that. It is just an approach maybe that somebody had with how they draw. So for example, when some people drawing in Revit, they would, like, if they want to draw something at a particular size, They will just draw it at a random size and then they edit it afterwards. Other people will draw it directly at the specified size. So it might be that's just another example of your approach. So
Right.
maybe whoever you heard that from, maybe that's how they do things. They first draw a slab, duplicate the slab, and then edit one and leave the app.
I think what was told to me is that the program come with certain presets, and so therefore you don't want to mess with that original preset, so you might lose it. So you want to therefore keep copying and modify or copy whatever you're going to use. So if you're going to do a wall or a slab, for argument's sake, you copy that, and then that one that you have copied, you change it to whatever thickness, flavor, whatever you want to do, because you don't want to mess up the original template.
Oh, right. I think I understand what you mean. It's not necessarily copying the object per se. So let's say, for example, I have this slab here, right? So what the person was saying is not like copying the actual slab and then changing it, but it's copying the family, right?
All right.
So how Revit work is that for example, the properties of this slab in Revit, you have two ways to adjust the properties. You adjust it by instance or by type. That's a fancy way of saying. So when you click on this slab, there are some properties here, and you can change some of them. So for example, I can change the level, I can change the height offset of the level. So if I want to make it 3 inches, 6 inches offset, I notice that it moved. But if I want to change, for example, the thickness of the slab, it's not in these settings here, right? These settings are called the instance setting. The reason for that is, all right, let's say, for example, if I copy this slab over here, I can have this slab being 10 inches offset like that, but this slab is not 10 inches offset. You see that? So this instance of the slab is different than this instance. However, apart from instance now, Revit has a way of editing what you call type. So the type would be what you see here. So both of these are the same type, meaning they're the same 12-inch floor, but one instance of the floor is at 250 millimeters above the other. So I don't know if you guys following me. You can have two objects. You can have two instances of an object, and one instance have a different setting than the other, but both of them are the same family type. So for example, what you're referring to now is that if I should change this floor from 12 inches, if I should change, so let's say that I don't want this to be 12 inches. So I go to edit type, and I have my edit type dialog box comes up here, which is a little big, make it a little smaller. Can I carry this away? Right. So let's say that in my type settings, I go to structure, and you don't have to do this, guys. I'm just showing this example. Let's say I want to make this 600 millimeters thick. So when I click OK and OK again, what you notice? Both of them change to 600 millimeters thick because I've edited the type, right? Not the instance, but the type. So both of them are using the same type settings. Now, what you are referring to is that what I've done here, there's a type called generic 12-inch floor. So let me undo that change. So let me go here. So this type is called generic, hold on, right. This type is called generic 12-inch floor. Now, if I wanted this to be a 24-inch floor, the best thing to do would be to copy it, which is what you just said, right? So I duplicate it, and you get the duplicate icon come up, and I say, okay, I want to make a copy of this 12-inch floor, and I want to call it, 24-inch thick floor. Let's say I want to call it that, and I choose OK. So now I've created a new type. I'll make this a little wider, right? And when I make it a new type, let me carry this down somewhere. So when I make it a new type, then I can go into here and I can say, let's make it 24 inches like that. All right. So now I have a new type and I choose OK. So now this is a different type than this. But notice that I still have a type called 12-inch generic floor. And I have another type here that's now called 24-inch thick floor. But instead of editing this 12-inch floor, I duplicated it. I made a copy of it because I don't want to mess up the 12-inch floor type. All right. Does that answer the question? So I duplicate the type.
Okay, so you're saying that, I mean, if we are not necessarily messing with the type, and we're using the one that come in the program, we can just use it straight. But if
let me explain it another way. If you already draw your full building and you use this generic 12-inch floor everywhere in your whole project, if you edit that 12-inch floor type, it's going to change the 12-inch floor everywhere, which would be a problem, right?
Right.
So you would duplicate it and then create a new floor, and then you use that new floor. So think of it more that way rather than default in the program, because there is no like default per se. You know what I mean? Like depending on the template that you it will have a 10-inch floor, a 12-inch floor, a 4, like it varies. Okay. But the reason why you would do that whole duplicate thing that you mentioned is you don't want to change, you know, wherever you use this type, you don't want it to change everywhere. If you wanted to just change a single one, you'd have to duplicate it and change it.
Okay.
You understand? Right. All right. So this is going to come up a little later, because we are going to do, hopefully we don't run out of time, we're going to do some family editing class activities. Let me tell you guys, family editing is like that's like a big thing now. Like if you just Google Revit family editing, you will realize that there's a whole industry out there of people who just build family types. So for example, let's say you work at a hardware, let's say you work at Ashley, right? The fancy furniture store in Ligani, right? And you want people who are putting up these new apartments, you want them to use your furniture. So what you could do is build family types, give it out to the architects so that they can use those models in their actual drawing, right? The couch and the table or whatever. And how you get those models? You have to create them in Revit. You create these families. So there's a whole industry where you have manufacturers hiring people just to create families so that people who are doing drawings can use your furniture, your slab, your roof. Because you're more likely to buy from Ashley if you use Ashley furnitures in your design. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying all this to say that knowing how to mess around with these settings for type can be very beneficial. All right. Any other questions, guys? All right, cool. All right. Don't worry if it seems a little confusing. Trust me, we're going to be using this throughout. Masses, no. Don't use masses to do your modeling. That was a question that was asked. Chambers. Use in Revit, you want to use the things that are made for the thing. So for example, you want to use slab for slabs, wall for walls. You want to stick in that category. Masses are used for a different purpose. And I don't think we're going to reach to it this semester. We're going to use masses in next semester when we do BIM. But the best I can tell you from now is don't use mass to do your modeling. Just follow the tutorials that we're doing in class, basically. All right. That's the short answer. Yeah, man. Any other questions, guys? Also remember, things are going to pop up. As I say, guys, if you follow what we do in class, you will have no issues and you will have no homework, perhaps. Right? If you are where I am at in the class, you're good to go. So if you have, the more you follow, the more you're going to have more questions. I remember that when we come to the lecture session, we'll carve out a little time where you can ask questions regarding the major project. Hopefully we have some time today because we're doing the presentations today, right? So if you don't have your questions now, you can always ask it later if we carve out some time. All right, so let's keep it moving.
Mounted on the face, by the face of the object. So for example, if I should go back to my elevation view, you will see that this is where the slab is. And actually the right view to have so that it lines up with this, I think is gonna be, it's gonna be this view. Right, so this is going to be our south view, south elevation. So we're gonna close these others here. Right, so let's bring these in a little closer. And I'm going to use my move tool, move them in a little closer here. So just so that it's closer to our object here. And also, let's change this back here. We're going to make this about 1 in 25. So now we can keep track of where our levels are. Now there's a shortcut. MV is a shortcut for move. So if I hit MV, I can now move MV. I'll just move these a little closer. Yeah, so that we can keep track of where we are. All right, so we've drawn this part here. Now we need to draw this upper deck that's going to be here, and then there's this ramp in between. Now to draw this upper deck, I'm going to go back to architecture and then go to floor. But this time, before I start drawing, I'm going to say this one should be on my level 1 upper, because that's the level it should be on.
All right, guys, that is super important. What you're going to realize now, because you drew your levels first, every time you're about to draw something new, a wall, a floor, a slab, whatever it is, always, well, it's a good practice to select the floor first. And that's the importance of setting up your levels. So now when I draw something, I can just say, before I start to draw it, I choose what level do I want it to be on, and it will just come on that level. All right.
And I could use the boundary line tool again, but this time I'm going to use one of the greatest features in Revit ever, right? And that is the pick line tool. So I'm going to click that and I'm going to pick a line, and it will just use that line as the boundaries. Like this makes life so much easier. All right. So I'm going to pick line and pick. Now, if you notice when I'm picking, some of them are not exactly lining up. Like obviously this should go like this and like this, but guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So now I'm going to use the trim extend tool, and I'm going to trim that to there, trim this to there, trim that to there, and trim that to there. And voila, you have your slab. Then choose OK. And notice now I have a slab that is here and one that is here. All right.
All right, guys, so you don't have to trace everything in Revit. There's a pick lines tool that you just use and pick the line. And this works for everything, not just slabs.
This should be, I think, north view. Let's see, actually. So, right. So this, if we take a look on this now, so this here is our lower deck. That's here. And this here is our upper deck. That's here. So you can see we're starting to create our base. All right, let's proceed. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to click on this deck here, and we're going to say we're going to make it 150 millimeters. All right. The space in between these should have the ramp that is here. Let's move these levels down a little more now. So I'm going to use the move tool and move them to about here, so we can clearly see where we're at. All right, now something else, this here is also flat. So as a part of our deck, it should come up to this point. So what we're gonna do is modify the boundaries of this floor slab. So with it selected, we're going to go to edit boundary, the top, and we're simply going to, let's add a rectangle. And we're going to draw a rectangle here because this should be a part of our boundary. Now notice that we get this error here because it's telling us that there are lines that overlapped, and it's going to show us that line actually, which is highlighted in yellow. So the line should have gone like this, right? So, you know, that is Revit for you. It's going to help you to draw actually. So I'm going to click this line here and I'm going to delete it. And for this line, I'm going to just drag it down and I will just snap it there. It should be fine. Now also notice that these lines have thicknesses to them. If you don't want to show them, you can click on this button here and then everything will be thin lines, but we're going to leave it on thick just for now because it's visually helping us. We're going to choose OK. Then notice our slab has changed here. So if we look at the 3D view, this is what we have for our slab. We have the lower level here. We're going to have some stairs that's here. We're going to have a ramp that is here. Actually, let's modify this again because this actually should cut out like this. So we're going to go to the edge and this time we're going to take out this piece here. Yes, we're going to get an error message. That's fine. We already know the problem, and that is because of, I'm going to select the modify tool, delete that and delete that and delete that, and we're going to just drag this down to here and choose OK. All right, there we go. So this space here is where we'd have the ramp. That's going to be actually a pretty steep ramp, so we're probably going to have to change that into a step, I think. We'll see. All right, then we have this, we have our upper level that is here as well, and then we have some stairs here. So we have some stairs that we need to draw. Now before we go any further, let us deal with the foundation first. So we do, according to our sketch, if I look back on my schematic sketch, we do have these foundation stilts to draw, and then we have these concrete stilts that are in the ground. So we're going to draw these now, and if we look back at how we did this, the plan was that we would put, we actually had another level that's here, and we call this top of foundation actually. So let's put that there. We call this top of foundation. So we're going to have a box, and it's going to go from the bottom of foundation to the top of foundation. So we can actually, let's try and do that in the 3D view, right? Now, if you notice in the 3D view, you see it gives you all of your levels in one space. So we can actually even delete this because we don't need the scope box, just to make it neater. So I can select these levels that's here, all of these levels, and I can actually, I'm gonna move them, make it a little bigger. So what I'm doing is I'm actually moving my levels to the area of my drawing, which it just makes it a little bit visually easier to understand. So I'm actually just doing this. Now we can align these a bit later, so it doesn't matter if it's not like 100% aligned. That's fine. Don't worry about it. For right now, we just want to align these. All right, cool. So now you can see that we have our levels pretty much in the same zone, and we're going to align these a little later. But from this we can, so if I click on this level, you get an indication of where that level is in comparison to your drawing, and it just makes the process so much easier, right? Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to continue. So now we're going to deal with the foundation that's below. Now, to do this easily, we're going to go to our plan view, and we didn't really sketch where the foundations would be. This is our sketch here. Let's not get it mixed up. So what we can do is, this is a group, so we can go into the group and I can select everything here, and I'm going to only select the lines. I'm going to deselect this, and I'm going to make all of these lines, I'm going to override it. So I'm going to go to right click and I'm going to go to override by element, and I'm going to make these maybe gray or orange or something that's a different color, so I can know that these are my sketch drawings that are here. And then within that I have my 3D drawings. Right, now we need to have an idea of where these foundations are, and this is something we didn't determine in the sketch, and that's okay. So we're going to determine that now. So this is where we're going to need our grids, because our grids are going to help us to align these foundations. Now to use grids, we have to use it in a plan view. So for right now, I'm going to make this side a little smaller because we're going to care more about this side for right now. So I'm going to grab my grids, and remember the concept of Revit, revise it. So I'm just going to draw a grid where I think it should be. And I'm going to just draw it here. These aren't like, I'm not measuring it now, I'm just drawing it. And if you can see from this very rough sketch, I'm pretty much saying that where these intersect, there will be a column there, a foundation, right? But I don't know yet. I'm just drawing first, and then I will make it up fully later. All right, so I'm drawing this here because I think I'm gonna have one here and one here. And this is 2 levels, so I probably need to have one on this side as well. All right, so now I've kind of drawn them in. I'm gonna change the scale to maybe 1 in 50, something that's a little smaller, so these bubbles aren't so big. And the rough idea is that I want to have say like, you know, I'll have a column there, maybe there, and there, maybe one here, one here, one here, one. Remember, you have this deck that's here. So I think this column is going to serve for both of these decks. I'm going to put this here. This one is a little weird. So this is why we have grids. So maybe I wouldn't put one here. Maybe I would put one here instead, I think. All right, so let's leave one there. And you see what I'm doing now, I'm actually just making this up. I'm kind of designing what the column grid should be. Now, in the real world, this might be done by a construction engineer or someone like that. But as the architect and designer, you should have an idea where these would be as well. And then the structural engineer can say, okay, no, you actually need to have a column, you know, here or wherever, right? So, all right, so I think that's where I'm going to put these. So if I go back to my grid, so I'm going to have a column on the grid, on where the both of the levels meet. So at the top of the stairs. So, okay, let's delete that. Right, so I'm going to have one here, and I'm going to use the move tool. So I'm going to go MV, and I'm going to move it to here. So notice how this sketch that we did is becoming very useful. We're actually using some parts of the sketch. Now for this, I want to have a grid here. Now I'm probably going to keep the column grid going along the edge here. So I'm going to move this here. And another way I could do this, I can use the align tool. So instead of moving it and snapping it here, I can go to align, and I can click the edge, then click the line, and it will just snap to that. And if I wanted to, I could actually lock it, but I'm not going to lock it, or constrain it would be the proper term. All right, but I want this to offset at least maybe, because I think these are gonna be, actually, now I'm even wondering what's the best way to do these. I think the columns are going to be right on the edge of here. And this is where we come to our foundation drawings. If we look back at some notes that we have here, we can get an idea of what a foundation, what is the structural arrangement of some typical foundations that are used. So these are some typical joints that are used in foundation and, you know, in stilt foundation. So we can choose, okay, how do we expect this to work? Like, okay, this is how it could be mounted to the base, but here, you know, are we going to use something like this, where we have 2 members like this, 2 members like this, and then the board sits between it? You know, we could use this arrangement. So let's try and work with this arrangement. So if we're going to use this arrangement, then these columns would actually be a little bit outside the base, right? And we're going to assume that this is maybe a 4 by 4. Let's make it a bit thicker. Let's say it's a 6 inch by 6 inch, right? Just for our purposes. So in that case, that would put that column here. So we can click on this and we can say, okay, we want this to be, so I'm going to go to my move tool, and if it's 6 inches, like this is going to be 3 inches. So it's 3 inches that way. So one of my columns would be here and one would be here, right? Actually, no, it would be 6 inches because this is to the center of the column. So for example, my column would sit kind of like that. And this would measure 6 inches, but this actually should be on the edge of the, so this is my base. So this actually sits on the outside of the base. And then you would have the wood members sitting kind of like this. Forgive this horrible sketch, I'm using the mouse. And then we'd have another member that sits here like that, right? And then you have the rest of the boards that sit like this. And that is how this particular detail would work, right? So if that's the case, then this should be 6 inches off of the edge of that. So we are going to adjust that. So we're going to make this 6. So we're going to move this MV to move and move this 3 inches again. There we go. So if we use our dimension tool and check it, yeah, there we go. And we can actually move this like here. There we go. So this is about 6 inches off the edge there. All right. Okay. So we're going to have one column here and we're going to choose how to do this. I think we need to have the next one. So we're going to move this down here and then we're going to offset this 6 inches like that. So just so that we can get an idea of what's happening, we can actually go to annotate and use the detail line. And I can draw this box here and I can make it just, there we go, 6 inches and this 6 inches. And I'm just gonna group it together. I'm gonna call it temp column because it's just temporary. All right, so I'm gonna just move that here just for now. All right, so this is where it would be. And actually, I think that it should be up here. So yeah, I was actually right first time. I should have this here. Sometimes it's so good to visually see how something works. So this should be 3 inches. Yeah, because this is where the column would be, and then it would be supported this way, and this would now travel all the way over here, and then you'd have a next column on the outer edges there. As for the edge here, oh, this is actually the edge here. So we're gonna have another one maybe here. Yeah. So this one should actually be here, and then we're gonna move this. I'm gonna say 3 inches. Right, so we're gonna have a next column over there. Okay, great. Then we're gonna have one at the beginning of the step, which is gonna be right here. So this is already there at the beginning of the step. Let me move this up a little bit. All right, and then we're gonna have one here. So this is already kind of done for us. We're gonna adjust this to the edge of that. Then the next one, I think we need to have one at this edge here. And I'm just doing this based of common sense, you know? So I am not a structural engineer, but you know, we can use common sense to say, hey, I think we're gonna need a column at the end here, column at the end here, you know, just because of what we're doing. Yeah. So we want this column to land, I think, over here. So we're gonna offset this. So we're gonna go move. We're gonna move this 3 inches. And then I'm gonna actually copy. Now, the next thing is we need to kind of organize these because they're all over the place. 7, 2, 6, 4. And so usually we put letters on one side and numbers on another side. So we can refer to column, you know, A4 or B6, you know, but we revise it. Remember that method. So we draw it, then we revise it. So we're gonna continue. All right. So this one here, we're gonna move tool and we're gonna move and we're gonna offset this by 3 inches. And yeah, so let's see. So we're gonna have a column here. So we need to have another grid. So I'm gonna copy this grid. I'm gonna put this grid here, and then I'm gonna go to move. I'm gonna make this 6 inches before. No, I mean 3 inches. All right, there we go. So we're gonna have this here. So we're gonna have a column here, and then we're gonna have another column here. We're not going to have one here actually. So this grid, I mean, it goes all the way through, but just so that we can visually recognize, I'm going to unlock this and move this to here because we're just going to have a column here, here, and here, right? So I'm, you know, just for visual, I'm going to put it like that as it relates to the deck. So remember that this inner deck travels along the edge here, so we're gonna have to have a column. We're probably gonna have to have a column here in the middle of the deck, and we're gonna need one here as well. So I think this one is okay. Then for here, we're going to need one here. So I'm going to copy this, and the CO is a shortcut to copy. And I'm going to go to move. I'm going to move this. I'm going to offset this 3-inch. There we go. So we're going to have a column here. All right. So now that our grid is complete, right? And remember, we said we are trying to use this method for setting out our columns. So these are columns here. That's pretty much on the edge. And then we're going to have these guys like that. All right, now it's time to draw columns. So we're going to delete this because this was just a temporary column. Now to create a column, we're actually going to model it. Now there's a couple ways we can do that. We can go to architecture and we can go to column. And notice we have architectural column and we have structural column. So as it says, structural is for load bearing, and architectural is kind of just to say a way that we can put columns into our drawings and not have to worry about inputting other structural details. So it's kind of like just a visual representation of where columns should go. So that's exactly what we need. So I'm going to do this here. Now, if I click columns and I just bam, plot this column here, then by default, if I look at that in our 3D view, this is what that column looks like. You can see that's that column there, which is not exactly what we want. But as we said, draw it, then revise it. So if I click on this column here, notice it highlights in our plan and in our 3D view. And then this is the drawing here. It is a rectangular column. This is a family. Now we can click on this and there are some other dimensions here, but in this case, they don't have what we need. We need a 6x6 column. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to go to edit because we want to edit this existing family and create our own. So when we go to edit, this dialog box comes up and then we are going to say, no, okay, we're going to duplicate this one and then we're going to call it still, I'm going to say column. And then,
all right.
So 6.
So you see, this is what we were talking about earlier. So when I put in the column, instead of just editing this column, I duplicated it and started a new column. And hold on, did I? Okay, I did. You guys were seeing that? Okay, right? I didn't click anything off. You guys with me?
Yeah, man, we saw it.
Okay, good. Right. So what I was saying is that I think it's a good practice whenever you insert a new family. In this case, I chose column. And for me, because of the template I chose, this column was already in the template. So depending on the template that you choose, it will depend on whatever columns you have available. For those of you that have a template that when you choose column, it say, well, you don't have a column here. Well, did anybody have to load a column? Those of you that followed, did it tell you that you don't have any columns in your project?
Yes, sir. I had to load a column.
All right.
Yeah, I had to load
Same,
one.
sir.
All right. And you guys know where to load it from? You remember that from?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is? All right. Good. Right. So when you loaded the column, it's usually good practice to duplicate it and then work with the one that you duplicate. Usually just in case you might have used it somewhere in the project before, I never remember. Right? Whenever you're creating a new family. And it's also good practice to always have a way that you want to name the family. So you want to name it 6-inch column, or you want to name it 6x6 column or something. Now, name it something, don't just duplicate it, because when you start having 500 columns in your project and you don't know which one is which, you just name column 1, column 2, column 3, you're going to get totally confused. So it's much easier to deal with it up front than have to deal with it at the end when you're confused about the number of columns, right? All right, let's proceed.
6 by 6, and then that's 6 inches by 6 inches, but we'll just put 6 by 6 and choose OK. So that creates a new family category, right? Or at least a subcategory of architectural columns. Now we need to actually say what is our depth and our width. So we're going to say, okay, it was 6 inches by 6 inches. Now notice that when I put in inches, it's converting it to metric for me. So it's kind of a weird way to work. I would say that probably if I could go back, I would probably just put 150 here and call it a day. But I'm doing this weird thing of where I'm working in imperial, but I'm also working in metric. So yeah, I wouldn't advise that, but it's a bad habit. Okay, so we're going to choose okay. All right, so now we have this new family. So if I click it, actually wait, I'm going to change it to stilt 6 by 6. Right, so here it is, M rectangular column, but the subfamily is going to be stilt column 6 by 6, and that's what this is, and that's great. Now we can mass copy these. So I'm going to go to move. Yes, we need to save. Thank you for reminding me. And I'm actually saving progressively. So I'm going to go to save as, and this one is going to be 03. All right. So let's continue.
So do you guys, you're supposed to know this from DDM days, right? So I normally try to save progressively. Progressively means that you save the file as a new file every time. So, 01, 02, 03. Just in case something goes wrong, file get corrupt or something, always a good idea to save progressively, right? On the topic of saving, Revit will save for you automatically. If I go up to File and go to Options, right? You will see a window. Where is that window? Is it behind the Zoom window? Okay, where? Okay, yeah, here. Right, you will see this window pop up, and then you can go to not file location. General, maybe. User interface. File location. David. Should be under general. All right, here it is. Right, save interval. So it will give you a save reminder every 30 minutes, and it usually only gives you the save reminder when you click on a button. So if you just leave Revit hanging around and not clicking anything, it's not going to pop up and say save. But if you go over 30 minutes and then you click on something, it's going to pop up and say, I remind you to save, right? Revit saves, it saves,
Your audio gone. Brian, we're not hearing you. No, Tim, I hear outside. Brian. We're not hearing you.
Continue. So we're going to click on this, and then I'm going to go to move and then grab it at the center here, and I'm going to stick it right here. All right, so I'm going to go to move again. Actually, no, I'm going to go to copy. So I'm going to go to that CO, that's the shortcut. And I'm going to say copy multiple. Make sure this is clicked, because now we're going to distribute it. Now there is a way to automatically distribute it where these grids meet, but because it's so irregular, we're just going to manually copy them in. This one is a little funny here. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. Yeah, we're gonna have one here, one here, and one here, one here. I think we're gonna have one here and one here. Now also notice that we haven't chose what are the levels for these columns as yet. We've kind of just placed them in plan view, But obviously in 3D view, they're not going where they should go, but we're going to revise it, right? Remember, that's our theme. Draw it, then revise it. This one needs to be at the corner, so we need to change that one. Let's stick that there. Let's stick that there. Stick that there. All right, I think we have everything there now. We're going to need one here, so I'm just going to put it here for now, and then we're also going to need one here as well, so I'm going to put this here for now. So yeah, right. Actually, this should be on this grid. All right, so you see, this is why grids are so important, because it can really help us to keep everything organized. All right, so this one here should actually be up here, and we could actually lock the column to this grid line here, but I don't think we're going to do that just yet. Maybe in another lesson. Actually, it's locked by default. Yeah, the word is not the word is constrained. So I'm going to move this down by 3 inches. There we go. And it keeps it there for us. So this is on this grid, and we need to put a grid here. So we're just going to copy this grid, CO to copy. And we're just going to put it down first, and then we are going to move it, MV to move. We're going to just drop it right there. I don't think this is at the proper edge here. So we're going to make sure that this is 3 inches from the edge. So I'm just going to click on this and say 3 inches. There. So yeah, so this, okay, wait, I'm going to move this down because I don't want to get confused with the grid. There we go. All right. This should be 3 inches. It says it is. Is it because of the thickness of the walls? Let me check the wall thickness. No, it's not. It's definitely off. And this is 3 inches here. It's because this column isn't moving with the line. It's not locked to the line. Okay, I was wondering what's happening. All right, so yeah, so I'm going to go to MV, and case in point, when I move this here and click that, sometimes Revit will automatically lock something. So for example, now when I move this column is locked to this grid, and it's also locked to this grid. So that's pretty cool. So now it's aligned, as you can see here. All right, great. But guess what? I don't want this to be aligned here. Actually, I want it to be aligned over here. All right. And by the way, notice that when I move this, it kind of feels like Revit is snapping, and that's because it is. I mean, it's just beautiful because now I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about making everything 2 dimensions, because these will snap to different areas on the drawing. And if you're ever like, if these lines are too thick so you can't verify if it's snapped, you can just turn off the thin line, which is TL, and you can see, well, this didn't snap here. So see, that's why we need to type it in. So this is 3 inches, and this, okay, let me do this. I'm going to move this here, and then I'm going to go to move, and I'm going to make sure I grab it in the center, and I'm going to snap it there. So now it's snapped 100%. So let's turn on back the thin lines. There we go. All right. So you want to make sure always that these are like 100% like accurate, because everything else that we build from here on is going to be based on these dimensions. Okay, so we now have our grids. Let's make it a little neat. So there we go. Also, let's align this one here. Good. So we're going to use letters on this side. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to say A, B, C. Now, if I had drawn the grids in the order that it should be drawn, then I wouldn't have to worry about, these. So I think I should have gone the other way, because you know what? Doesn't matter. 1, 2, 3. This is telling me that I already have a grid line called 2 or called 3 or whatever. So, which is here. So 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have 4 already. 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is 6 and 5, 4. I have 4 already. Okay, so 1. Yeah, right. I do have 4. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, great. Let's save. So now we have everything gridded up. Now we need to deal with these these heights, and this is where our levels will be like super helpful. So let's look back at our sketch. So these guys here, now this is where we're kind of going outside the realm of our sketch, because at the time when we sketched this, we didn't know what foundations we're going to use, but now we know that we're going to use this type of foundations that go maybe above the deck a little bit. Yeah, so they may come up, and we could make those foundations form the balconies as well. if we really wanted to. We'll see if we'll do that. Okay, so let's continue. So right away, we need to have these tilts going from the level 1 lower down to, we want to have top of foundation, right? So I'm going to click on these along the edges, the ones on level 1. So remember, level 1 is this lower level here, right? So I think I need to align these properly because they're like visually bothering me. So yeah, let's align these properly. So let's click on this. Now we're gonna align this here, and we're gonna align this there, and align this here. Yeah, let's just be organized about this thing. Yeah, let's go here. Yeah, we gotta change the scale on this, so we're going to go to the scale here and make it 25. Oops, this scale actually. Yeah, make it 1 in 25. There we go. All right, now let's align these. All right, lovely. Let's continue. Let's go to the south. So we're gonna make sure that all these are aligned. Yeah, good. And go to the west. Ooh, west needs to be aligned as well. So we are gonna put this to 5. And mainly. Right, so now here, these are all like aligned, which is good. Let's also change the scale of this one to maybe 150. So now we can.
All right, mic check. Yeah, you hearing me now? Right. So what you're realizing is that as you go deeper down, your model is probably going to be being much more different than my model, right? But we should be doing pretty much the same thing. So right about now, you should be creating your columns, however your columns are for your building, right? Also, I want you to try to keep everything neat, right? By the way, you will be submitting your working file, so definitely try and keep it neat, because that is also one of the criteria that we're looking at, right? So even because we're not printing, right? So we're not going to be like showing column grids and levels and all of these things, but at the same time,
want these to
we want it's good to, like if you're working on a messy desk, it's hard to concentrate. So you want to try and keep your drawing as tidy as possible while you're building your drawing, especially for those of you that are going to have multiple levels, right? All right.
These grids, because it just makes the modeling process so much easier. All right, so let's take a look on that in 3D. You can see that we now are beginning to have our base nicely aligned, right? Okay, so now we also want to put in our structural members, because if we look back at our sketch here, so we need to have these members running along the edge here. So we're going to run some along the edge here, going across. Now to run these structural members, we need to model them, of course. And in order to model them, we're going to go to architecture. And in Revit, you want to always use the proper type of family for whatever you're modeling. So for example, if you're drawing a structural framing, you don't want to use a column, because a column is meant to go vertically. And in Revit, you want to use the correct category to draw the correct objects, because remember, Revit is a collaboration software. So for example, you might have a structural engineer, and that structural engineer is expecting beams to be actual beams, meaning they're supposed to be horizontal, and columns supposed to be vertical. And if in your drawing you're using beams as columns, then it's going to pose a problem for the structural engineer's drawing. But even before you get to that, it's just not tidy. And that's the thing, Revit promotes you to be very tidy, very organized about how you go about your BIM model. So for example, a floor slab is different from a roof slab, even though both of them are horizontal, right? So if we're going to create these members, these are not columns, so we're not going to create columns and rotate them. Instead, we're going to create structural framing. Okay. Now, in order to get these members here, we're going to have to look under, structure, because this is a part of structure. Now, important thing to note, these headings that you see here in Revit, they are pretty much everything that has to do with that industry is grouped under these headings. So for example, architecture is a lot of tools that are used for architects. Structure is a lot of tools that's used for engineers, right? However, it doesn't mean that if you're doing the architectural part of Revit, you don't go over to the structural part a little bit to get some stuff, or you don't go over to the steel part. Chances are you're not going to be in the structural tab a lot, because we have things to do like rebars and all sorts of things that are heavily structural based, right? However, for things like columns, beams, floors, truss systems, some of these we might actually dabble in for architecture. And the same way, where if I was an engineer and I would pretty much live in structure and steel and precast and systems perhaps, it doesn't mean that I may not want to use a tool that's only available in the architecture tab, which has like windows and doors and roofs and that kind of stuff. So just keep that in mind. Though I wouldn't try to dive too much into the other industries, because for our type of drawings that's in architecture, we want to keep it about the building as a whole and not too much on the details of structural engineering and plumbing, because there are professions for those areas. So I'm going to go to structure, but I'm just visiting, right? And in this case, I'm going to need a beam, because in our sketch, these are beams. So I'm going to choose beam. And before I actually start to draw a beam, because right now, if I draw a beam, I'm going to be drawing this type of beam, which is an I-beam. So let me just draw it right there. That is what I'm going to be drawing. This is not the type of beam that I would like, so I'm going to delete that. I would want a timber beam. So let me click beam. Now I could click this drop down, and these are the different beams that you will notice are there. And most of these are actually steel beams. Now in this case, and like in many other cases, you're going to need to import a whole new family to be able to have in your project, because right now the default is going to be I-beams. So while I'm under the structural tab and I click beams, right? So while I'm under beams, I am going to need, remember, if I draw now, I'm going to be drawing this type of beam. So what I want to do is I want to go over to modify while I'm still in beams, right? So right now my modify tab is asking me to place beams based on these, lines like I just did. But instead of placing them, I want to load a family. So I'm going to choose load. And this is where you need to have your families installed, right? So if you have your families installed correctly, and I'm using the US based family, if I click this drop down here, you will see this is the default location of Revit families. So right now I'm under English Imperial. I'm using the US. There is an English metric as well, but we're going to use the Imperial because a lot of the types of families so for example, if we're saying a length of timber, we say a 2x4, we're really speaking about Imperial. So in this case, these are all the categories of families, and I want to go down to structural members. That's here. And I'm going to go under structural framing because these are the categories that beams would fall under. I'm going to go to structural framing, and I'm going to go to wood framing actually, because that's what I want. And then I have a couple options here, right? In this case, I'm going to choose dimension lumber and choose OK. And then these are basically the sub families within the family of dimension lumber. So for example, this is a 2x4, meaning it measures 2 millimeter in the the height or depth, depending on how you explain it. Right, so for example, and then in the width is 38 millimeters. So what this is saying is that the height, which is here, so height is also known as depth in lumber land, and width is the actual width that we have here. So you know, when you say the word 2 before, you're saying 2 in terms of the depth, and 2 in terms of the width, and 4 in terms of the height. In this case, it is giving us the imperial name 2x5, 2x4. These are terms that we use if we go to the hardware and we say, hey, we need a 2x2 or 4x4, but it also gives us in millimeters as well. So in this case, we can pick. So I'm going to say that these are maybe 2x6, perhaps. So I'm going to choose that category and choose OK. And now I have a 2x6 length of lumber. So if I draw, that's a 2x6 length. Pretty cool. So, all right. So I'm going to delete that. And I'm actually going to go to my plan view here. And I'm going to draw the lumber in these plan view. So to do that, I'm going to click on beam again. Before I actually start to draw, I want to say how do I offset my justify? So for example, right now it's justified to the top. So what does that mean? That means that when I draw this beam, when I click and draw a line to here, it's going to be based on the top of the beam. So we need to set the level of this top justification. So to do that, we're going to say that, okay, so we want this beam to be on, if we take a look here. So these are the members that will run horizontally like this. So that's those members. So we want these members to actually be on the level 1 level.
Right. So guys, if you notice that document that I'm referring to, if you want to access it, it is actually on the mirror board. So for example, if you head over to the website, website. Right. So if you head over to the website here, right, and you click on the class digital whiteboard, right, you will notice that here we go. So under the section tips and guides, this is where you can find a lot of these examples. So if your structure is going to be different, like it has to be timber, guys, because remember that's a requirement. So it has to be timber. But take a look on some of these examples, right? So for example, how some of these are drawn. I used primarily the interlocking or overlapping, but there are different ways that this can be attached. Now, you don't have to model like the screw holes and those things and the bolts, but how you represent it, there is actually a criteria for marking for that. How much does your design represent what actually happens in construction, right? So you can't just push one surface inside another surface. Like you also have to think about it, which one of these you intend to use. All right, guys. Use up these are all from the chin drawing. So when you come on the mirror board, like these are actual ways of how things are constructed. Now you can balance the detail to how you want. So for example, I only placed in the major structure, so the posts and those beams. You don't actually have to draw the individual floorboards. Like, no, you don't need to go that far. You can just use a floor surface and that's it. But you do have to show structure, right? So you have to show the foundation structure and you have to show the wall structure, but we're gonna get to that in the next checkpoint. All right. So just pointing this out, guys, use this as a guide to how these things are actually created. All right, let's proceed.
So we're going to say the reference level is going to be level 1 lower for the beams that are running down here. Oh, actually, I need to put some columns in. Oh, these columns are actually in, but we're not seeing them here. So, okay, let's fix that before we draw the beams in. So I'm going to press escape, because if you notice, you're not seeing the columns here on these lower levels. And the reason for that is we need to adjust our view range so that we can see things that are below our cut plane, right? So for example, if I go to my east elevation here, right, and I'll just go to a shaded view so you can see it a little clearer. There we go. So this is our column here. Let's go to the north and let's go to shaded. Let's go to consistent colors. It's fine. Let's go to shaded. All right, cool. Now this is our base here, but this is our cut plane. Let's make this a little bigger. Right. So currently, this is our cut plane here. And I'm going to put that in this color. Right. So this is our cut plane here, and everything above the cut plane is up here, and everything below the cut plane is down here. So as the setting is in Revit now, we can see everything above the cut plane, which is why we're seeing these in plan, but we're not seeing what is below the cut plane, which is these. So we need to change that setting. So to do that, we need to go to our plan view, and we need to go to our view range. And to access your view range, make sure that you are on the sheet, meaning that you haven't clicked an object. You've clicked the sheet, or you've clicked nothing, and then you will see the properties of your view, your floor plan. So you scroll down here, you look for view range, and you go to edit. Now the important thing to understand about view range, it can be a little confusing. If you go to show, they have this very handy diagram that is here, and what this is actually saying is,
all right, guys, this is it right here. This can be one of the most confusing things in Revit, so I want you to follow closely, because you're going to be coming back here to adjust view ranges all the time. When certain things are not showing on the plan, this is where you come. All right, so I'm going to try and go through it so you can understand how it works.
that hey, this is your entire view range. Your entire view range is from here to here. Now, this is the stuff that you would see, and this is your cut plane that is here. So when you have a cut plane here, you can see up to this point here or down to this point here. So this is why you're going to see, if you don't cut through the furniture, you're going to actually see the chair and the table and everything up to this point. Now, in order to see below this point, we have to adjust what's called our view depth. And our view depth is this area here, where our primary view range is really this area up here. So these are the two things to remember. So these settings, so for example, your cut plane is going to be this. How far up do you see? Like for things like reflective ceiling plans and all of that, it will be up to this point here, meaning your offset. So you're going to be on level 1, looking up to a maximum distance of this, right? And looking down to a maximum distance of this. So there's no offset. You're looking down on the 0 line, whereas your cut plane is offset at that, which is here. Now, in order to see below your 0 plane, remember your 0 plane is different from your cut plane, right? Your 0 plane is where you set your level for that floor. And then above the 0 plane is where you set your cut plane, which is what you're seeing here. So below your level, how far below your level do you want to see? That is what you determine with these values. So this value here is the answer to why we are not seeing the columns on the ground floor. So if we take a look here, I'm going to cancel this. We should be seeing some columns here, but we're not seeing them because they are below our level. So what we need to do is we need to go into view range, and let's have this up just for reference. So what that means is that our view depth, which is this section, this is how far do we want to see beyond the level that we set. Right now it's set to, it's on the same level and its offset is 0, which means that pretty much anything below this line we're not going to see. So what we could actually do to fix that is set our view depth to be the level below. So now we will always see up to the level below, and then we're going to say apply, and look, now we're actually seeing the columns. So this is what.
All right. Now, did that confuse anybody? Guys, anybody there? Are you with me, guys?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let me ask a question, right? So if I go to my plan view here and I go to view range, which is here. Where is my view range? It's somewhere on my screen. Behind this, that's oh, here it is. Right. All right, guys. You guys can see this diagram, okay? All right, so Jadmir. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Question. Based on how I have my view range set up, right? So remember that this line here is my cut plane. Am I going to see this window here? Yes or no? That's this window.
I don't think so, sir.
And why is that?
Because it's cut below the window, so when you're looking down, you wouldn't see it. I assume.
Exactly. Now, that means I would see this window because it's cut there, and I would see this window, right? The other thing to remember is that well, we're not going to do reflective ceiling plans, but floor plans you're looking down, reflective ceiling plans you're looking up, right? So if you have something on your ceiling that is beyond this line, then that means you're not going to see it. So this is how these levels come into play here. And a lot of times when you're in Revit, especially when you're doing something for studio, and maybe you have a mezzanine space where you're looking over and down into another space and you're wondering, why am I not seeing below and all of that, right? It's because of these settings right here, right? Anyway, if you ever get confused about this, you can rewatch that section in the video, right? Because we will eventually come back to this, and it can be a little confusing, right? But yes, Jadmir, you are correct. You wouldn't see this window here, and that is usually an issue. Like sometimes if you have a bathroom window and you look on your floor plan, you realize that you're not seeing the window, and that's because it is above the cut plane. And if you can actually adjust your cut plane up, but then you might not cut some things that you want to cut, right? But this is how you change that setting. All right, let's keep it going.
What we need in order to draw our beams. So we're going to go to beams. Right. Now, notice that if we try to draw the beam now, let's draw the beam like this. So there's a couple of things. Firstly, let's draw the beam. When we draw the beam, we're not seeing the beam. But of course, the beams are there. We can actually see them here. Okay. So if we go to beam and we attempt to draw the beam now, you might notice that we don't see it in plan, but we do see it in the 3D view. Here is that beam here. Now, again, this has to do with our view range, right? So let's click this beam. Well, let's leave this beam. Let's go to the floor plan and go back to our view range. And essentially what we're saying here is that our view depth is fine. We can see below the zero plane, but we're not able to work below the zero plane. So for example, if we remember our diagram here, yes, we can see here, but this zone here we can't edit. We can only see. So for example, we can see the foundation in our plan view if it's not being blocked, but we can't manipulate it. But everything in this range here we can manipulate. So essentially what we have to do is we have to lower our primary range into this range here so we can actually see it and manipulate it. So the quick way to do that is we can actually say, okay, how about letting the bottom of our primary range be as low as the bottom of the view range? And we can do that if we say, okay, let it be the bottom of the layer below, which is bottom of foundations. So now the primary range will be below, and we are now able to work in the primary range. So let's choose OK for that. And now we can actually see the beam here, which is this beam. Now the next question you might be saying is, well, we can see the beam, but it's just a line. And the reason for that is, well, by default, Revit doesn't want to show you full details on certain elements because it might make the drawing over complex. So things like beams and sometimes columns, they might choose to represent it in its simple form, which is a line, because as you can imagine, if we have a lot of these on our drawings, it's going to make the drawing quite complex in its visuals. Now we can overwrite that if we want, just for our purpose, because I actually do love the fact that it's just a line. But if we want to show the drawing in high detail, we need to go down here to where it says detail level, and we need to change that to medium. So right now it's on coarse, which is, basically low detail, but on medium it will show more details, but for all elements. So in this case, it will show more detail for the beam. So now we have the beam here, and we can adjust it, and we can also move it as well. So beams are a little funny in how it is. They have kind of a structural grid line, and then along that structural grid line, you can adjust the beam along that structural grid line. Before we adjust it though, well, actually we can, but note that the center point, the justification is in the center, so we would need to offset it depending on where we place it. All right. Okay, so we could actually move that beam into place here, and it should snap, but we don't want to depend on that. We want to actually snap it, so we can use the align tool here and choose the edge of this, then choose the edge of that, and then bam, they're now snapped. All right, that's the beam that we have there. And notice that, well, this beam should actually be, this is correct. However, the floor should be sitting on top of this beam here. So we're going to adjust our floor slabs now to be more realistic. And a good way we can do that is we could actually cut a section so we can actually see what everything is doing. Or we can go to an elevation view. Let's go to an elevation view. Let's go to our east view here. All right, so we can see this is our floor slab that is here. And let's see if we can let me carry you to a view where you can see that element here. Actually, I see what's happening. Okay, over here, I want to show a different view. Yeah, okay. I think for our purposes, let us hide the floor plan view for now. So I'm going to choose hide. There we go. There we go. It's actually here, but because we also have this on coarse, so we put this on medium. Yeah. And now we're able to see this element here. So let's use this view. I think this view may show it better. We got to change all of these to medium view. Yeah. So this is this element here that we're looking on right here. So let's also align it to this view. So I'm going to choose align. There we go. And right now this beam is here and this is our slab that is here, right? So the slab should actually be sitting on top. Now there's a couple ways we can do this. We could have another level and call this level under slab. I think I'm going to go with that level. So I'm going to say level 1 lower under slab. So I'm going to copy this level and I'm going to make it 2 inches. Maybe. There we go. And this is going to get a little confusing. So what I want to do is I want to move the title, which I can do, or I can just actually break. Okay, I'm going to move this down just for now. Right. So I'm looking for this break line here. And now I can kind of break away the heading so that it's not so confusing, kind of like that. So now for this one that I want to make it, where is that dimension? Here we go. I want to make it 2 inches below. Now I can break this away like this, so it's a little easier to read. Now what I want to do is let my beam be attached to this level, which is under floor slab. So I'm going to call this L1 lower under floor slab. Yeah, I know it's a mouthful, but we got to keep organized with our levels. That's the beauty of Revit. It can really allow us to be organized. So what we're going to say is that we want the reference level. Right now the reference level of this is here. Now the interesting thing about these levels is that about the structural system is that when you click on it, when you look in the properties, notice it says that the reference level is level 1. But when you click on like a floor slab, notice it says the constraints is level 1. So constraints is different from like reference levels. So notice that you can't readily edit the reference level here. And that's just how columns and that's just how structural members usually operate. They are very rigid in how you edit them because they need to be, because they are literally the structure of the building. So they're not easily like manipulated unless you really want to manipulate them. And additionally, I think it's set up this way because it's perhaps easier to work between industries like architecture, engineering, structural design. I think it's easier for them to like manipulate the model when they're collaborating when it's set up this way. So anyway, to change the level, because right now, remember what we want to do. We actually want to place this structural member here on this level, right? Because we want it to be below the floor slab. So in order to do that, we need to click on the structural member, and instead of in order to edit the reference level, we need to look under the modify, that's right here, and go to edit work plane. And notice right now it's referencing lower level, so we need to reference level 1 under floor slab. Choose OK, and now it's moved down to that level. Then for our floor slab here, we need to, the level is on level 1 lower, but we need to actually set the height of this, because right now it's measuring 150, but we need it to measure 2 inches. So, and we need it to be timber preferably. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go to edit type, and what we can actually do is let's choose a floor that is close to what we want. So let's choose, let's see if we have anything here. We don't really have wood flooring. We could try to import it.
Sure. How did you drop
But
the
what we're
beam
actually
again?
going to do is,
Yeah, go again.
How do you drop the beam again?
I changed the level in the beam settings. Right?
Sir, my level grade
Oh.
out.
Hold on. Let's
Oh,
see.
you have to redraw it.
Well, no, you don't have to redraw it because when you draw the beam, hold on, when you draw the beam, like here, close this. Yeah. Well, when you starting to draw it, yeah, you can always choose a level. So, but if you draw it already, so for example, let me go here in 3D view. If I have this beam here, you can choose. Oh, you're saying this here is grayed out. Yeah, if it's grayed out there, then you have to change it in the work plane. So you go here, and because the work plane, where is it? Oh, right here it is. Right. So the work plane this in is level 1. So if I change it to level 1 upper, it was okay. Then it goes up. So for beams, that's just how it works. For slabs, it's different. You can just change the level here. But for beams, it's grayed out here because it's really based on a work plane. So you can change the work plane here. Understand? Or when you're drawing it, you just choose the level before. All right?
All right, sir.
Yeah, man. Cool.
is we're just going to change this from a floor. We're just going to choose a wood finish. Now, notice when you choose that, you're not going to see any difference in your drawing. This primarily changes remember, this is a subfamily, so pretty much it changes the setting. And notice that the wood joist is now 235. Now what we want to do is we want to edit this, and we're going to duplicate this just like we did before, and we're going to call this floor finish 2 inches. And then we're actually going to edit the structure of this. And this is interesting because this is where we look at how this is made up. Now here is the finish level here, and it is 20 millimeters thick, and it has the material. This is the material, but you only see the material when you change it to texture. So for this type of flooring, we just want to show the top level, right? Whereas this material, the way that this is set up, it is set up where it just represents the floor as a single slab, but defines how that slab is made up. Now you will see how that slab is made up, maybe like when you cut a section, but you're not going to visually see it on the drawing. So this is one of those areas where we would choose a level of detail. Now in our case, we want to actually show the covering on the top of the floor. So we're actually going to delete these other elements here. And we're only going to leave the finish. We could move this level down, and this level we will delete. So we're just going to leave the finish level, and we're going to make it be 2 inches. We're going to let it be 2 inches, and that's it. I'm going to choose OK. So that's it. And this is for floor finish 2 inches. Choose OK. All right. And there we go. Now we have the floor finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
I say for some reason mine not deleting.
Oh, what you deleted?
The structure parts.
Core
boundary.
Go again?
The core boundary, like for the structure of the flooring, they're not deleting.
Hold on. All right.
Okay, well, sorry, I just set it to 0, so probably do the same.
Okay. Because in the levels, in you can where is it? Where is it? Here you are. Yeah. So every walls and slabs and roof, they have the structure, right? Let me go here and edit structure. So you see them like this. So you can delete the boundary is not an actual thickness, right? So for example, I can have multiple layers and I can set the layer to be outside the core boundary or inside the core boundary. So this part goes into a little bit of construction, right? Which we're going to dive in a little bit more in the BIM module. But essentially, let's say for us in the Caribbean, we mainly have black walls, and that pretty much does everything, right? We literally have black walls and we just paint the outside of the black wall. So for us, can I delete multiple? Right, for us, this is what a black wall look like. It's just a thickness and that's it. But let's say living in somewhere that you have cold temperature, the US, Canada, and those places. You in the middle, you have you're going to have insulation, and then you're going to have a layer on the outside. Maybe that's going to be some kind of plywood, and you have to have a layer outside of that now, which is going to be some sort of siding, right? That is because you have the extreme cold and the moisture. So you don't want the moisture hitting the plywood. So for example, if you look on the mirror board here and look at some of these walls. So in this case, for a timber wall, the core would be the frame, and then the exterior face would be some kind of plywood, and the interior face would be some kind of plywood, right? So that is how that whole core and thing work, right? So you have to have you cannot have a core. You understand? Cool?
Yeah.
All right, cool. But you can delete the outside of the core, and it will just pretend it's just like that's just literally how a black wall is. The black wall is the core. All right.
And we have it in 2 inches, which is right in this level here, which is great because now we can copy this. So CO to copy, and we're gonna stick it right here. Oops. So now we have this arrangement, and you can look at this in, let's open the, there we go. So we can see where this is our arrangement there, which is good. So now we have these structural members going across like that. Now there is still one thing missing, because we actually have members going down this way that's sitting on top of these members. So actually I'm going to go back to structure and go to structural beam, and I'm going to draw another member going like this. Now this member that we drew, which is this member here, we're going to align this one should actually be, let's go to edit work plane, and this one should actually be under floor slab. Then we're going to need another level. Yes, another level. And let's go to the side view for this one. So ideally we would want a level that is under floor joists. Let's call it that. So we're gonna click this level here and we're gonna copy it. Yeah, there's a lot of level here, a lot of levels. All right, so this level, we're gonna do the break thing again. And the reason the break thing didn't save is because we're in a different elevation view. So you have to do this for every view. There we go. So this one we're going to call L1 lower under floor joist. So this one is going to be under the floor joist. So now if we go to 3D view, we want these 2 members here to reference to be on the layer that's under floor joist. So now let's see, yes, under floor joist. Right, so I think we made an error there. So it should be under floor joist, which is FJ. Right, so choose OK. So now they're under here, which is exactly what we need. We need this to be under here, and we need the floor joist to be under here. So let's arrange this. So we're going to use the align tool. The shortcut is AL, and we're going to align this like that. And we're going to align, as a matter of fact, well, let's just drag this down like this. Actually, let's use the align tool, align this there. Actually, and that's the thing with the structural tool, you can actually move the member along the structural grid line, or you can manipulate the actual structural grid line, right? So let's move the actual structural grid line. So I'm going to go to move and move. There we go. I'm going to move it down to here. Oops. There we go. Now it's there. All right. So that is what we are looking on there. So now that we have one corner pretty much done, we can just pretty much duplicate this to the other areas. And we can use a combination of our plan view along with the other views. So this area here, there should be some stairs that goes here. But before we put the stairs in, we're going to adjust this. Now, the reason, okay, so we're going to make the structural lines be, let's use the plan view. Let's grab the structural lines. We're going to let the structural lines be actually out here, but we can actually extend the member beyond the structural lines. So usually you want the structural lines to snap to the structural grid, actually, like this. And then the structural member, you can make it, you know, whatever length. So for example, when we do this, so I'm going to snap this member to this edge here, and now we're going to duplicate this. So this is actually on both sides, so we're going to copy this, we're going to copy this over here. Okay, we're going to save. So I'm going to save progressively again. Now a key note on saving, Revit actually auto saves. If you notice here, you see I have some saves with some numbers. So for example, when I saved as 4, Revit auto save one called 4001, 4002, but I still like to save progressively, so that I can kind of track my steps. All right, so we are going to adjust these two guys here. We have to adjust one at a time, perhaps. Okay, so we're going to use our align tool, and we're going to align it to this edge here, and we're going to align that. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to choose this edge and align this. Now, even though we have aligned them there, if you click on it, notice that the grid is still there, but the element is aligned to here, which I think that's the way that Revit intended it to work, I believe. So now in this case, I don't think we would need a member on the outside here to be accurate. These would be on the inside. So let's copy these. So we're going to go to CO. We're going to copy it in the plan view. So we'll put one there, and then we're going to put one here. And then for these, we're going to delete the N ones because we don't need the N ones. There we go. And for these, we're going to extend them. So we're going to extend this all the way to the end here. And same thing for this one. You can see that it's actually below the floor level. All right, there we go. So when you look in the 3D view, you can actually see those structural members going beyond that. So these are like the primary floor joist, and then you would have more members traveling along here, but we're going to put the primary members first. Now you can also do this in the 3D view, where it's a little bit harder. Let's do it in the plan. So we're going to choose this, and we're going to extend this to the full length. Remember, this is the structural grid we're extending first. So we extend it all the way to the grid, this one as well, all the way to the grid, and then we can change the member. So for example, this is below, right? So we have this member going all the way across here, but it would actually stop here. So this is where we can use the align tool. We can use it in the 3D view as well, and align that and align that. So if you click on it, you still see that the grid comes all the way to the grid, but the member aligns down there. There we go. And I think we can do the same thing here, where we can align the member to be there. I think we needed a grid in the middle. You know, it just seems like to be more structurally sound, because this span is looking a little big. So I'm just going to select the entire middle, including the grid, and I'm going to copy it somewhere here. And this is where we can now deal with the spacing. So maybe this member needs to be in the middle of these two spaces here. So what we can do is when we click this, a good way that you can use to make sure this is in the middle, you can use your dimension tool and dimension this side, then also dimension that side. Actually, wait, let's go again. Use the dimension tool and dimension from here to here to here. And then we can just click this equal and it will make it in the middle. It didn't carry these members with us, so we're gonna have to move this. There we go. All right, so now we know that this is equal, has equal sides. So now we have a middle structural member, which seems a little bit more reasonable structurally. All right, now we do need to copy this column within this space here. So I'm going to use the word structurally reasonable is what it seems like to put these columns here. So now we have a member here, here, here. Now we also need to do the same thing with this, with these levels. So let's go to this elevation again. And we need to also have a level 1 upper under, level 1 upper under floor joist, and level 1 upper under. Man, okay, this is getting crazy. All right, so we're gonna copy this, and we're gonna copy 2 inches. And yeah, we need to totally organize this because it is getting a little crazy. So this one here is the level 1 upper, which we all knew already. This one here is gonna be the level 1 upper under floor slab. Are you following? I hope you guys are following. It's about to be interesting now. And you know, some people like to draw with a lot of levels, and some people just likes to set the offsets manually. But the best practice is you want to use levels for everything, because if you decide that the level 1 upper needs to be higher, then everything you attach to that level will move automatically, right? All of the floor joists, everything. So you want to have as much levels as possible. Definitely, it doesn't hurt. All right, so we're gonna copy this again, and this was about, this one was actually the length of the structural member. So I'm gonna copy this structural member. Now, if I try to copy this structural member up here, it's not going to work, because structural members, you have to set the working plane. So I'm going to set this to the upper under floor slab. So it's up here. And of course, I'm going to set this floor slab again. I'm going to change this to the one that we made, which was floor finish 2 inches, like that. So now this is under that. And then this now will be under here. All right, and let's align that with other levels, and let's also make this a little bit more neat. There we go. So this is now, okay, wait for it guys, this is going to be interesting. Level 1 upper under floor joist. Yeah, so now this is under here. So now we have this structural member. I'm going to align it from here to here, and this member here, let's look at that in 3D. Okay, so it's here.
So I guess you get the idea now. What I'm doing is I'm putting levels for as much things that I want to put it for, right? And this will be very useful because when all of your designs will be different, and you might realize a little later down that, oh crap, I think my floor joists need to be a little lower or a little higher. You don't have to go through and adjust every floor joist. You just adjust the level that they're attached to, right? So this is why you see me using a lot of levels for everything. All right.
We're going to do that. So here, floor slab. Now this drawing might be getting a little confusing, so we can always go to shaded and we'll see where the shaded areas are. Right, so we need to now go to structure, structural beam, and I'm just going to draw the beam in first. Oh wait, before I draw, I'm going to choose the reference level. So this level needs to be level 1 upper under floor slab. I'll draw it like that, and I'm going to attach it to the grid. I'm going to move the element, if I could grab it right here, there, same thing for this. Then I'm going to align it, and then I'm going to copy this over here. All right, and I don't think I need this element here. Wait a minute, this is lower. This needs to be higher. I thought I did set that, so this needs to be upper underfloor slab, and so does this guy here. Right, I don't need this here, but before I delete it, I think I need to copy them. So I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to copy them here as well, but obviously these need to go down to this level because they are higher. So I need to go to edit reference plane, and I'm going to make this lower under floor slab. There we go. Then I'm going to copy them now. Oh, there's one more. This one is tricky because it's here. Okay, let's put it here, and let's... Actually, I had this one already. Yes, I did. This might actually look interesting, having another column here. I'm not sure if it's structurally feasible. Looks a little bit overstructured, but it's okay. We're just doing a concept. Yeah, all right. All right, our base is coming along. We do need to copy it here for this part, so there we go. And what we need to do is we need to delete this outer one, and then this one here we are going to adjust it to... I could just grab the... there we go. Actually, I can just use the align tool. Okay, coming along. Okay, so obviously these members here, they don't go all the way down here. They would stop here actually, so I am going to, but before I stop them there, I'm actually going to, I think I should copy them. I need one here as well. So I'm going to copy these. I think I can do this. I'm going to try and copy. Then I'm going to go to paste, align to pick level. No, wait. Let me see. I can go to paste, align to selected levels, and then I can paste it to upper under floor joists. Aha, it does work. So now I've pasted them up here and aligned them to there. Now, of course, we don't need all this structure here. So these ones here needs to be aligned to the edge here. So I'm going to go to align. I think I'll do this in 3D view. It's easier. Same thing again for this guy. Same thing for this guy. And this guy, and this guy. Maybe we should put another member here. I don't know. It might look nice, so we don't have a budget for this project, so why not? Our only budget is time. So we're gonna align this like that. All right, cool. All right, this guy here is a little weird. Where are you? What are you doing? This needs to be on the upper under floor joist.
Right. So right about now, you should have had your main structures in, and it's just placing the substructures wherever they need to be. All right. In my case, I'm just copying them, editing the length of them as I go along. In your case, it might be a little different. Right. So this is what I mean by it must be structurally reasonable. So we don't have to worry about the bolts and the holes and the angles and all that stuff. Pretty much it just needs to be reasonable in how it looks, because structurally. So I shouldn't see anybody that just have one column and then you have a floor just sitting down on the column, you know, with no indication of how that column stands up. All right. Right. But pretty much that is the end of this checkpoint. We're close to the end of the checkpoint. So what I want you guys to do is to just finish up. Right. We have a couple minutes left. There is really nothing new that you're really learning here. The only other things I'm doing is just tidying up stuff, right? So I want you guys to tidy up stuff, and what you're gonna do is, if I go to the class website here, right? So back again on the class website, and I go to the handout, which is here. And remember, you already submitted checkpoint 1, which includes the sketch and the 2D drawing, right? But now you're going to submit the 3D terrain, right? And tell you what I'm going to do. I think, yeah, I think I'm going to give away another double point for this checkpoint, right? What do I mean by double point? Meaning, if you submit your checkpoint today, meaning by the end of the before 12 a.m. or whatever, this is for your terrain here. You will get points towards your participation, right? So if you were following along and you're like almost done, just submit the work and you get points towards your participation.
Sir, but we have not learned how to do a 3D terrain in Revit.
You have not learned how to? Go again?
To do a 3D terrain in Revit. I don't know how to do that.
No, right. No, so just the foundation, not the terrain.
Oh, okay, sir.
Right, because checkpoint 2, ultimately checkpoint 2 comprises of the foundation and the terrain. We're going to do the terrain next class. This class is just about the foundation. All right. Next class, we're going to build the foundation and then we're going to put the terrain on the foundation. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right. But the catch is, you guys can send me today your terrain. Then I will give you, sorry, not your terrain. If you send me today your foundation only, just the foundation, you don't need to do the terrain. If you send it today, I will give you points for your class participation. All right. So I'll run that little double points again. But that is pretty much it, guys, for today. As usual, I will put this video up along with the summary. All right. Give me feedback on the summary, guys. Is it working out? Like, do you guys use the summary and is it useful?
I have not used it, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? For those of you wondering what I mean by summary, when you go on the class website here and you go to recordings, the recordings button is now here. When you go to recordings, you will see a recording of the class, which you see here, but there's also a summary that comes with it. So if I click on this class recording here, it will open up. This is the video, right? So this is the actual video you're looking at here. And below it is a summary of what happened in that class. All right, which is pretty cool. So in case something happened in the class and you don't know exactly which point in the class it happened, hopefully you can catch it in the summary, meaning you can just do a search. Like if I heard, I discussed something to do with foundation, right? Alignment. Hopefully you could just search for the word alignment in the summary and maybe the summary will catch it. We don't know yet. But this is a new feature that we're rolling out for the computing, at least for this section here. Anybody use this yet? Anybody have used it yet? Nope.
Don't think so, sir.
All right, cool. Well, it's there. I'll give it some time. But that is it, guys. That's it. So let's finish up your foundations. And I will see you guys a little later for your presentation. All right. So it's group topic 1 and 2. Remember, 15 minutes. Have the questions ready. And that's it. So see you later, guys.
All right, later, sir.
All right, cool.